right. It's time we finish the first KOTOR story arc with KOTOR Volume 6, Vindication. Which technically, that's only 4 of the 7 issues in here are the Vindication storyline, but they basically all tie together. This is the finale of Zane's story. And we're going to be talking about issues 29 to 35. Issues 29 and 30 are called Exalted, which is just Zane following up with what Celeste Morn said about where the Sith artifacts are kept. It's a fun 2-issue storyline. It's dark, but, interesting, and I won't say too much about it. But basically, the wheels are in motion for the end. And genuinely, I thought we were getting to the end of KOTOR here, because issue 31, I should say, Turnabout, is them trying to break the Coruscant blockade, which is interesting. Also, Alec is officially going by Malik now. We're really starting to see him becoming what he will be, Darth Malik, in the KOTOR video game. He has the blue tattoos on his head now. We've just slowly seen him morph into being Darth Malik, although he's not a dark side user, but his confidence in the Jedi Order as a whole is greatly shaken at this point. And we're starting to see Zane's plan to try to clear his name is starting to happen. And then we get into issues 32 through 35, which is Vindication, where we find out what the plan was all along, and that it wasn't even Lucien's plan. Of course, he lied about having to kill the Padawans. That was not necessary. He just decided to take matters into his own hands when he wasn't supposed to. But we have a character who's just been in the shadows this whole time, and it turns out that he's been behind everything. He's been manipulating Lady Krinda this whole time, which, by the way, I remember reading this and wondering when we're going to actually meet Lady Krinda, because we've only seen her in flashbacks. And yeah, the reveal of what has happened to her is kind of shocking. Lucien's reveal is shocking. There's a lot of shocking things that happen that I will not spoil. But basically, not everything has been what it seems, and Zane has really been a pawn of everything up until this point. And basically everyone's been manipulated. It's kind of weird, but in a good way. And the less I say about KOTOR Volume 6, the better. Which makes it hard to review. I know this is a not satisfying review of things, but things get wrapped up really well in this for Zane. And I want to specify for Zane. There's a lot of things that haven't been wrapped up in general. And we're going to get to that in the next next 3 storylines, and then we have a weird epilogue. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But I want to clear up something here. I made a mistake in the Vector review as to the Sith artifacts not being on Coruscant, like they clearly are after this. That's explained. I won't say how it's explained, but it is. It makes sense. That was me being a salty ass overall. The one thing I will say about these comics, art changes every issue, and that's a little frustrating. I'm not saying that the art is bad, although occasionally you get a real heinous looking panel in this. Nothing as bad as Vector. I will say, nothing ever gets that bad again, crossing my fingers. As I recall, nothing ever gets that bad art-wise again. But every once in a while, there's a funky panel. It's never by Brian Ching. Brian Ching's art is very on point, but it seems to me he couldn't make deadlines. I don't know for certain this is a thing, but it would make sense. And, I wouldn't mind so much. In fact, I haven't minded most of the time when this happens. It's when you're in the middle of an arc and the arc changes in a different issue, it's bad. This happened with the Mumo 2-issue storyline back in the Flashpoint volume, where it was like issue 11 was Brian Ching art, and then issue 12 was a different artist. And that artist has done a lot of stuff. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He's fine, for the most part. Every once in a while, his stuff gets sloppy and it's hard to look at. But it's just weird. And that happens in Vindication, the 4-issue arc of Vindication itself. We swap from artist to artist. And the thing is, one of the issues is a backstory for most of it. So I get switching to a different art style. That'd be an interesting stylistic choice. But they don't. And it's funky. It gets really just peculiar. So, honestly, what do I give KOTOR Volume 6? I'm going to give it a 4.9 out of 5. The reason I dock 1 point from it, a 0.1 point off of it, is because of the art changes. They're just weird. But other than that, this is solid. This is one of my favorites writing-wise. It's one of my favorite... It's probably my favorite collection of KOTOR stories. It was satisfying. This is one of those... Matt Wilkins brought this up when he talked about this years ago in his Matt's Expanded Universe. Is that KOTOR didn't overstay its welcome with the main plot. It's unique compared to pretty much any other Star Wars comic series in the Dark Horse period, because it doesn't overstay its welcome. It does its own thing, and it becomes more a character study as we go forward. And they do set up in this that it's not over. Zane's name's cleared, basically. Or, I mean, spoilers, but you figured this was going to happen. Zane's story and him being... He's still always he's the primary protagonist of all this. But his character's very developed at this point. And going forward, we start to focus more on Jariel and Roland more than Zane. And Griff. So, I like that. It's not like Zane's not in the stories. He's very much involved in all of them. Up until War, the miniseries. In fact, he's the only one who's in most of War. Oh, everyone kind of comes back at the end of that. But, his stuff's done. The whole fugitive plot line is done here. And then we move on. And John Jackson Miller, I heard this... I was talking to Quality Autism about this. And he envisioned, 3 sort of storylines for Zane. The first one was the fugitive storyline. The second storyline is volumes 7 through 9. And then there was a third one, but it got cut short because they had to do the War miniseries. So, I don't know how much validity there is here. I don't know. And at this point, with a lot of EU stuff, you got to be careful when you talk to creators, especially with them writing for Disney now. They would say some things back in the day they won't say now. For instance, there are a lot of authors that say that Christie Golden was going to write Sword of the Jedi. Christie Golden absolutely denies this, and that there was ever anything other than she was contracted to write it, but there was nothing there. Basically, Christie Golden will not say what was going to happen with Sword of the Jedi. whether she was going to have that Hutt gang war that's kind of sort of starting to set up in Fate of the Jedi. Like, she just won't say. So, like, I don't know. John Jackson Miller seems like a genuine human being. So I'd love to pick his brain about what would have happened with KOTOR. Because when he was done, when war was done, it really seems like he had no desire to go back to it. And that's why he went on with the Kara Holt character and did Knight Errant, which is way later after KOTOR. But anyway, that's about all I have for today. Have a good one.